Welcome to Leawood 360. City voices, community stories, full circle Leawood. I'm Beth Breitenstein, Leawood Strategic Communications Director and your host. Each month, we take you behind the scenes of the people, programs, and policies shaping life in Leawood, Kansas. From local leaders to passionate residents, we're talking with the voices who make this community thrive and bringing it all full circle. Hi, I'm Beth Breitenstein, and welcome to Leawood 360, Episode 3. Today's episode is all about planning, the kind that shapes the streets we drive, the neighborhoods we live in, and the way our city grows over time. Joining me are two people at the center of that work. The Honorable Mayor Marc Elkins, a longtime civic leader and advocate for smart, balanced growth, and City Administrator Diane Stoddard, whose leadership and planning expertise have guided cities across Kansas. Together, we'll explore how Leawood is preparing for the future through its first strategic plan and a newly launched comprehensive plan update and a shared commitment to intentional community-driven progress. So let's jump in. So first of all, welcome. And I wanted to kind of start big picture with you, Mayor Elkins. Leawood has a reputation for thoughtful growth, not just development for development's sake. Why is that kind of intentional planning so important to you as mayor?
Well, Beth, when dealing with individual projects or plans or proposals, it's really easy to lose the forest for the trees. And a planning process is really an important checkpoint for making sure that the team is on track for the long-term vision of the city. And it helps us with patience in making sure that the city evolves in the way that we want it to, according to our long-term vision.
Well, excellent. And Diane, when planning is done right, often people may not even notice, but when it's missing, it's a different story. Can you share a moment when good planning really paid off in Leawood or elsewhere?
Yes, Beth, I think one great example of that for Leawood is this area around the City Hall, the Leawood Town Center area. And as I understand the history of that, there was a desire in the community to kind of create a downtown, create commercial activity and that kind of opportunity for Leawood for the long term. And there was a desire to have City Hall in a centralized location. So over 30 years ago, those leaders saw that need and moved proactively to do that. And now today we are the beneficiaries of that excellent planning that happened more than 3 decades ago.
And it's so hard to imagine Leawood without those as well. And Mayor?
Beth, I would just add to that from personal experience, when I moved to Leawood 30 years ago, this town center area was a wheat field with a large red barn at one end where Bristol is and a stable where the Apple store is. And so the city leaders at that time really had the opportunity to look at truly nearly a vacant piece of ground and to do something with it. And it shows, again, how good planning can activate a collaboration between the city, the county, and private developers as we built the library, our city buildings, and the kind of commercial space that really has been a mark of distinction for the city of Leawood.
And so that brings us to something happening right now. Very recently, we launched the update to the city's comprehensive plan called Leawood Rooted and Reaching, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape what comes next. So Diane, talking about the comprehensive plan update, it's been nearly 20 years since the last one. And so for people who may not know, what is a comprehensive plan? We have a lot of plans in city government. And what kinds of questions are we trying to answer with this update?
So the comprehensive plan is a required plan for all cities in Kansas to have. This is the highest level plan that we have for the community. This is a 20-year time horizon plan. And so it is really kind of once in a generation that you have the opportunity to go through this comprehensive planning process and really think about what do we want to see in Leawood 20 years from now. And we have lots of other plans at the city. We have capital plans. We now have a strategic plan, but all of these are informed by the comprehensive plan. The types of questions that may be answered in this is, again, what do we want to be in 20 years? What should we be thinking of in terms of housing for that kind of horizon? What about transportation? How about different development types? What about redevelopment? All these really big picture questions are part of the comprehensive plan, and one that we hope to engage lots of different voices in terms of informing the plan that gets adopted eventually.
And you spoke about engaging different voices. Why do both of you think it's important that we hear from the community now before those decisions are made?
Well, I think it's important to note that the city is really at an inflection point right now. We have evolved from a situation where there were large parcels of undeveloped property to where better than 95% of our land mass is already spoken for in terms of either construction or approved plan. And so right now we're making that pivot from a growth mindset to a reinvestment and continued investment in all the attributes that we have mindset. And so it's really important then that our residents get involved, because this plan will guide our decisions and will focus our vision for the next 20 years. And so we really want to know what they want and what they view and their vision of what the future of the city should be.
And Diane, what are some ways that cities engage on a topic like the comprehensive plan?
Well, we plan to engage in lots of different ways. We have people in the community that like to engage in different ways, so there'll be opportunities for people to engage in person meetings and charrettes and things like that, where they are actually being able to interact with maybe some visuals that help guide what they're looking at. And then just an online format too. Somebody might not be the one that wants to come out to a public meeting, so it's our challenge to provide a format that responds to everybody. So we'll have lots of opportunities online. And we have a questionnaire that's out there now for residents to begin that process of interacting and providing input.
So Beth, it brings to mind a question that I've had, and I'll put it to both you and to Diane. In this whole process of the comprehensive plan, I've heard this term charrette. What in the world is a charrette for a Midwesterner like me?
You know, Mayor, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I know that that's an inside baseball term for a lot of folks. So I'm gonna throw this one to Diane, since you're our guest. You know, it's not my job to answer questions, right? Wink, wink. All right. What could you say about that?
Well, that's an example of where someone might take you through something really specific, and with visuals and with planning to be able to get a better idea of what it is that you're wanting to see, and helping you be able to do that, not just maybe in words, but also in pictures.
I know for me, a charrette is really helpful because I am more of a visual person. We have really smart engineers here at the city who have really detailed site plans, and people with architecture background. But for the average Joe like me, sometimes it's hard to follow that. So charrettes are really great for that. So, you know, a plan is only as good as how it's used. So after a comprehensive plan is adopted, what happens next, and how do we kind of make that transition from vision to action?
And the next logical step is the development of the Leawood Development Ordinance, which that development ordinance really governs kind of at a legal level our plans and the way in which residents and businesses develop their properties here in Leawood. And so it's only natural that we would combine these two projects, the comprehensive plan and the development ordinance, into a single project. So immediately after we adopt as a city council the comprehensive plan, we'll begin with the planning group and our planning commission in developing the Leawood development ordinance, which are really the nits and gnats and the specifics of how we implement that plan.
So, as you pointed out, Mayor, the comprehensive plan sets the vision, but the city also recently adopted its first ever strategic plan, which helps guide more of that day-to-day, short-term work of the various Leawood city departments. So, Mayor, from your perspective, how does having a strategic plan help city staff stay focused on what matters over the next, say, few years?
Well, just as the comprehensive plan informs our decisions on building and construction, the strategic plan gives us a broader vision beyond just development and construction as to what we want our city to look like in the next 5 to 10 years, and the things that we judge are important. And the classic problem of economics is that you have unlimited demand and limited resources, and that strategic plan helps inform not only the city administrator and her staff, but also the governing body and our elected officials about how we perceive that we should be investing those resources.
And Diane, this plan includes, I think it's over 50 goals, which sounds like a lot of goals. How can residents track what's actually happening?
The strategic plan is online now, and so anyone who's interested can read about it on the city's website. And we will be having a dashboard that will be helping us track progress. We plan quarterly updates to that dashboard, and then there will be flexibility for the governing body to revisit on occasion if there's a need to the elements in the strategic plan and provide direction if there are new things that pop up or things that need to be changed or new things that need to be prioritized in another way. But I really see this as, how can we be proactive? We have to be reactive to so many things. Minute to minute, there's so many things going on, but how can we be proactive to move some very important pillars in the plan and ideas and objectives forward?
So, of course, these plans don't just appear out of nowhere. They're built on years of public service, leadership, and experience, which you both have a lot of. So, Mayor, you spent nearly 2 decades on the Leawood Planning Commission before becoming mayor. And I can hear that as you speak about development. You've been through a lot of those decisions in those 18 years. So how did that experience shape the way you think about planning and long-term growth?
Well, I think it emphasized for me the importance of collaboration, and that's collaboration between our volunteer citizens who sit on our various volunteer committees, our elected officials, and our city officials to collaborate together to make individual day-to-day decisions that are consistent with both the strategic plan and the comprehensive plan, which really continues to inform us about what we think the long-term goals are and the long-term vision for the city is as we make individual decisions along the way.
And Diane, you've led planning and city management efforts in a few municipalities as well. What has made Leawood or the Leawood process unique or uniquely challenging?
One of the things I think is really unique about our process in my experience, now that I've been in this long enough to be involved in 2 other cities with their comprehensive planning work, we're the first one that I'm aware of that I've seen where we're putting the comprehensive plan update and then the Leawood Development Ordinance update directly in the same process. One will come before the other and inform the other. But to have them be so closely related, and we can use a lot of the same input that we receive from residents and businesses for the comprehensive plan to then flow into the Leawood Development Ordinance, the regulations then that actually see to it that the plan is put into action. And so I think that makes it unique. And really every community is unique. So I know the specific issues that come up for Leawood will be different than other communities. And there's always that element of uniqueness that we want to make sure this is not just what other places are talking about, although a lot of times that context is important also. But is this a Leawood plan? And that will make sure that it's unique to Leawood.
And a question for both of you, having served the public for as long as you both have, what draws you into public service? And after all these years, what keeps you around?
I really love the idea of serving the public, and that I've always been interested in service. And I am really interested in projects that really create a lasting impact on a community. And so while that might be infrastructure projects or development projects or how neighborhoods grow, a lot of times I'm seeing more and more in my career too how it's things like trust in government and the transparency in government, just the residents' relationship with their government, and that's also of great importance to me and drives me to work hard.
Well, for me, interestingly enough, scouting taught me from a very young age about the importance of servant leadership and the idea of service above self. And then later on, my professional mentors often reminded me how important it is to not oppose something without having a propose to support it. And so that all led me to the idea that if I was going to have a voice in the affairs of the place that I live in, I needed to not only complain about things, but I needed to be able to make proposals on how to make them better. And so that whole idea of servant leadership and of proposing beyond opposing are what have driven me to public service.
I love that. Have a solution if you bring up a problem. And so kind of looking a bit further, when you picture Leawood, say 10 or 20 years from now, what's your hope for what it feels like to live here?
It tends to be a little bit of a slogan, but it really, in very short phrase, captures what my vision for Leawood is, and that is the idea of a place where we live with distinction. Distinction not only in our residential areas, but distinction in our commercial and retail areas, and distinction with our system of parks and what we do in our leisure time.
So for residents who want to be part of shaping that future, and they don't quite know where to start, what would you say to them?
Historically, we've had a very strong system of engagement by our residents through, I think, more than 20 different boards and committees in which residents volunteer and have a direct impact on the decisions that the governing body makes. What happened more recently is that we've created an easier way for those residents who have an interest to make themselves known to me and to the governing body as we make our appointments. And that's kind of an annual process. I want to emphasize for folks that it'll be in the October-November timeframe when we will be considering appointments to the various committees the governing body has established. And there's an electronic way from the city's website that individual residents can reach out to me and can let me know what they're interested in, what their passions are, and how they would like to become involved with the city. Beth can give you more details about exactly where to find that on the website, and let me know of your interest. Don't be discouraged if you don't hear from me promptly, if you're letting me know in March or April, because it will probably be October or November before we start making those decisions.
Thank you for mentioning that, Mayor, and that web address is leawood.org/boards if you want to look into ways to volunteer in that way. I want to close with a few, not necessarily rapid fire or lightning round questions, but lighter questions for you both. Talking about, what it takes to be a mayor, what it takes to be a city administrator, what would you say if you could bottle one skill that a city administrator should have? What would that be, Diane?
Besides a photographic memory, that would be really nice. I'll probably say that it's translation. And so what I mean by that is we're taking extremely technical things from day to day, from engineers, from people with architecture backgrounds, various professions, and trying to boil that down into something that is relevant to people day to day and do a bit of translation back and forth. And then it's also, taking some of the vision or direction that a governing body may provide and translating it to what does that mean for the person that is more technical on our staff. So that's one of the important skills that I feel like I need to have and is certainly good to have as an administrator.
Absolutely. And Mayor, same question. What's an essential skill every great mayor needs?
Well, I think there are really two of them there. The first one is the ability to listen with an open mind, to come into any conversation without a preconceived notion of what the right answer is, and to listen to disparate perspectives with an open mind. And then the second part of that is to translate that, to use Diane's phrase, to translate that into building a consensus among our governing body that brings into perspective all of the various thoughts of our residents to come up with the best common solution to whatever the issue is that we're trying to address.
Something I ask all the guests here. So when you're not working and planning for the future of Leawood, what's your favorite Leawood escape or activity, or maybe a hidden gem that you don't mind revealing to the audience?
Well, I've been walking around Leawood, so I've been checking out a lot of wonderful gems, and discovering things I didn't know about Leawood. But I would say I really love the Tomahawk Creek Trail, and it's just a great vibe there. It's so beautiful with the trees along the creek. You really don't realize you're in the middle of an urban area when you get there. And on a hot day in the summer, it's extremely relaxing to be under the tree canopy where it's 10 to 20 degrees cooler, and you can escape some of the heat.
Well, for me, it's also our trails system, which I think tells you a lot about how important the planning for trails have been. For me in particular, it's the Ironwoods Park Trail. I grew up in the Flint Hills of Kansas, and our Ironwoods Park Trail reminds me a lot of the rolling hills of the Flint Hills, and it gives me a little bit of an escape. And then in addition, kind of the similar sort of feeling is the sculpture of the Dreamer, which just kind of sits in an inconspicuous spot, and it just kind of surprises you as you approach him. So those are the two that I enjoy.
Great choices, and we are really lucky to have such beautiful scenery here in Leawood. Well, before we wrap up, any final thoughts you want to share on the topic of planning for the future?
For me, an important aspect of this whole planning process is that if you sum up a lot of the individual challenges that we have in the future as a community, it can be summed up with the thought that the challenge is, how do we encourage investment by both our businesses and our homeowners in our community, while at the same time maintaining the character of the community, the character of Leawood that has made it a distinctive place to live. And so really how we answer that question, how do we continue to invest in our community and yet maintain what we all think is a wonderful place to live?
It's a balancing act for sure. Well, Mayor Elkins and Leawood City Administrator Diane Stoddard, thank you both for joining us and giving our listeners a closer look on how Leawood is planning its next chapter. And I do want to mention that if you'd like to learn more or get involved in the comprehensive plan update process, you can visit LeawoodRootedAndReaching.com. And if you want to take a look at the strategic plan, you can visit leawood.org/strategic plan. And thank you both again for joining us.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
And now it's time for the Roundout, where we give you 4 pieces of news you can use. First up, let's talk budget. I know talking about city budgets can feel a little head spinning or maybe a fast track to nap time, but stick with me because this one really matters. As part of the 2026 budget process, the city's Budget and Finance Committee has recommended that the governing body approve the proposed budget that staff presented. They also recommended exceeding the revenue neutral rate while keeping the city's mill levy flat, but nothing is final yet. The big moment comes on September 2nd at 7 p.m. at City Hall, where City Council will hold the public hearing and vote on the budget, the capital improvement plan, and whether to exceed the RNR, revenue neutral rate. And we want you to be a part of that conversation. So please feel free to attend that hearing in person, stream it live on our YouTube channel, or you can also submit public comments in advance. However you choose to engage, we'd love to hear your input. All the details and draft budget materials are available at leawood.org/budget. And number 2 of your roundout, let's talk cell service, or lack thereof. If you live in central or southern Leawood and feel like your phone is stuck in 2003, you are not alone. While it's on the carriers to fix coverage, the city is working with them to make it happen. That includes a potential new tower near 135th Street, a proposed tower at Ironwoods Park, and some discussions about boosting height on existing towers near Leawood South. So the catch is most of Leawood is already developed, so tower space is tight, And small cell tech, it needs a strong signal to begin with, so it's not the fix we wish it was. In the meantime, try Wi-Fi calling or a signal booster and make sure you are reporting any issues with your service to your provider. Check our website for updates at leawood.org/news. And number 3, let's take a quick detour to Tomahawk Creek Parkway. Well, because that's the only way to get there right now. Crews are making great progress on the new northbound lanes between 115th Street and College Boulevard. And in just a few weeks, traffic will shift onto that freshly paved stretch. Up near 119th Street, the roundabout is shaping up nicely. Crews are building a retaining wall, installing drainage, and giving the center island some definition. It's not quite ready to spin through yet, but it's getting closer. And here's a win. Access to the Justice Center and Leawood City Park from 119th Street is expected to reopen this month, weather permitting. We know we've seen a lot of rain lately. As for sidewalks and trails in that area, the west side of the parkway is still closed between 115th and 119th, so pedestrians are needing to detour along Row or use the north side of Town Center Drive. So we know it's a bit of a maze right now, and we do very much appreciate your patience. Just know that smoother paths, round, straight, and otherwise, are on the way. Finally, let's talk trees. Leawood recently gave its street tree ordinance a bit of a makeover. Why? To keep our community both leafy and walkable. So if you're thinking about removing a street tree, you know, the ones planted between your property line and the curb in what's called the public right-of-way, you will need a permit and a plan to replace it. Now, this isn't just about being picky. It's about protecting sidewalk, sewers, and that beautiful tree canopy we all enjoy here in Leawood. And we know trees matter to you. You've told us. And it's literally our city logo. And here's a little bonus in this street tree ordinance update. If your tree qualifies, the city might even cover the cost of sidewalk repairs next to the new tree. That's part of a sidewalk pilot program that we have launched for just 2025. And we'll see how that goes and whether it would be something we would move forward with permanently. So if you want to find out how to apply for that program and how to apply for a street tree removal permit, you can head over to leawood.org/street trees. And thanks for helping us keep Leawood shady in all the right ways. And that will do it for our third Leawood 360 podcast episode, all about planning for the future of our fine city. If you like what you hear, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, share it with a neighbor, send it to your HOA group chat, shout it from the rooftops in reasonable hours. Don't violate the noise ordinance. I'm Beth Breitenstein, Strategic Communications Director for the City of Leawood, and I'll talk to you soon.